It's just my no bookmark 2-tab screen that you see.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Afternoon. Just give everyone a minute to move in here. All right. So if you guys want to just use the raise hand function, or feel free to type your question out as well. Oh, here we go. We're looking for any steps or APIs that may be available to move documents to cold storage, specifically FiServ's director. Unfortunately, I can't remember either my former Slack login, so I don't know if there is one out there. Okay. What exactly is FiServ's director?
So we have a client that uses that for their cold storage. So
okay.
I don't know exactly how it works on their end, but we're looking for something that would send files to director.
Okay. Content management software. So does it have, FiServ director, salary. There we go. Let's go. We should just go job hunt.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Payments, FiServ director, document management director, FiServ. I just want your API. I understand. Nothing there.
So I'm guessing Decisions doesn't have one since you didn't know what director is.
Correct. Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. The question is, I guess the question turns on how the files are handled.
So from what I understand, we haven't implemented it yet. What I believe we can do is send a report of document names, and then I want to say a zip file, but I'm not really positive on that part. But we were wondering if there was something a little neater where Decisions could actually prep the files with any indexing that would need to be done. But it sounds like our best bet is probably to do what they want with the report. And
yeah, what's the report piece exactly?
Well, because it would need to be indexed, so we would have files and they would need to be searchable based on either date or account number or whatever other criteria they would use to grab stuff back from cold storage.
Right. Okay. Yeah, likely, assuming if there's an API and it's a REST API, then we're looking at making REST API calls. If you're actually moving the files themselves, like zipping them up, and then putting them at a particular location, you're probably talking about a pattern just using a create file step, where you can zip and use create and put it, and having it put itself on a particular directory location on some shared drive or something.
Correct, and that's the path that we planned on using, but we were curious to see if there was an API that would let it be more direct, but it does not sound like there is.
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, we definitely don't have anything, but the question is, does FiServ have like a REST API that can do this? And if the answer
Yeah,
to that is yes, then we can definitely do it.
Okay, I will do some more digging on the FiServ director side. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Director API.
I thought you were going to look up the salary.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
FiServ API docs. Start building your integration of FiServ. Payments, terminals, boarding, merchant, how to use. None of those things sound like what I want.
Yeah.
So this probably looks like they have payments APIs, but this is likely. So how do I managing documents FiServ. Digital document storage and delivery. Okay. Digital storage, digital delivery, more digital documents, digital storage, W3C client portal, digital storage, secure access. Yeah. It looks like you'll probably need to reach out directly to FiServ and confirm if they do have anything. But likely you're talking about a document manipulation or, sort of manually in quotes, right? Handling the documents in the workflow engine to do XYZ.
Okay. Thank you.
Now I'd be happy to work on exploring those patterns together with you if you when you get some more information about how to interact with those, right? Like I'm sure there's other customers of ours in financial services that would like some of this information documented. So that's an open invitation to leverage me if you'd like to work on that in partnership.
I will remember that.
So as long as I can document some of the things I find. All right. Anything else from you?
No, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anybody else? What else do we have today? Okay. I want to call. All right, here's a question. I want, and Sabrina, are we putting the questions in the chat so everyone can see them? Okay. I want to call a flow within a before delete entity event. When I do, I get a validation error. The flow only allows synchronous steps. This type of step is not allowed. The content of the target flow does not matter. The error occurs even when the target flow has no steps. Is it? I think it's yeah, so it's not letting you put a subflow at all inside of the before delete flow, is it?
That's what it seems to be doing. And so I tried fiddling with different types of flows to see if maybe I could finagle, squeeze something in, but it seems to be very.
Let's create an entity here really quick.
Very opposed to this idea.
I don't think it's, it might be that you can do it if you make it an async subflow, maybe, I'm just guessing. Like if you use a fire and forget subflow behavior. Let's see here. For everyone that doesn't know, Chris is asking a question about a before delete step. And in some of our data types, you have entity events and you can run a flow before save, before delete, after save, or after delete. And so there's an entity and a before delete flow here. And I can have like oftentimes auditing type behaviors run when these changes are occurring. So I can, what is it? What's, just to ask Chris, what is it? What are you doing? What's the before delete doing for you here or attempting to do?
It's attempting to delete something else, but I kind of crafted a subflow to take care of some of the fiddly things. But just to try and figure out what's going on here, I even created what I called a do nothing flow that is literally just start connected to end, put that in there, and same result of this flow only allows synchronous steps. And I scratch pad and go, huh, well, all I'm asking you is to enter and exit a flow, and that's enough to provoke the error. So what's the what does this decision as you want me to, is it, is there a way to?
Two things to test here. Let's try with async, and then let's try modifying the subflow's behavior and see if that gives us any change here. Instead of it being, I'm assuming it's a default flow behavior. There is a synchronous flow behavior that we can try and see if there's any effect.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any luck with trying to find a flow behavior, but I didn't get too adventurous with that either.
No
In as
worries.
much as I kind of thought some of those subflows look like they really do have particular contexts in mind, which I don't want to throw into the mix.
I don't understand what I did to the SQL server on my local. I've got to get a new laptop.
What's the easy way to fix performance problems? Get more hardware.
Yeah, right. I think this Dell laptop is struggling. Yeah, okay, come on. Yes, I understand. I don't know what's happening to my SQL server. Look, is it well, the fact that my memory is pegged is probably the issue. Time to close some Chrome tabs. Sorry, here, just a second while I get my local back into a decent state. All right, did it save? All right, there we go. There's our flow one. And now I'm back into my delete flow. Let me exit this. So before delete flow, and I'll find that flow. So here's flow one. I will connect it. And now I will be in the same state you are in, which is this flow only allows asynchronous or synchronous steps. So let's see if I muck with the flow behavior of this, can I change this? So default flow behavior, we should have a sync, default flow behavior sync. If I save this, let me try saving, coming back out. Okay, still doesn't like that. Unfortunate. So let's try start link flow async. And here we'll select flow one. I need to stop naming things flow one.
We might need more creative names.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that might work. Yeah. Now, the question is, this looks like it might work, but the question is, do you want the delete to fail if this subflow fails? Because I don't know that you actually want that behavior, but this won't allow that to occur.
I'm okay with the delete continuing if the internal delete fails.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that would prompt a question of down the road, what if I do need that feedback?
I do think this falls in line with, I would expect that a flow that has synchronous step requirements, that it actually respects a subflow of sync behavior. What's happening here is it's not intelligently looking inside of the flow. It's just looking at it just knows that it has a subflow.
Well, it seemed to be as simple as, the run flow step is something it just strictly forbids, and that's all there is to it. It was my conclusion. So, I mean, when you drag in that flow one into your thing here, I think implicitly it's wrapping that with a run flow step, yes?
Say that again.
So you just used a start linked flow async step to kind of get this to work.
Yeah, correct.
But I think that when you originally put flow 1 on there, what it did is it just kind of actually just installed a run flow step on your behalf.
Yeah, well, yeah, because this one you have to select this, right, and then
Right.
select a flow.
But
So
I
that's
think if
true.
you pick its neighbor, just run flow, I think you'll immediately get that error message of, hey, this is not allowed in the one at the bottom.
Correct. Yeah, because this is a special type of flow. It's like that runs on the back, that fires off a separate, unrelated background process. And because of that, no matter what the content of it is asynchronous, considered by the calling, the parent or the owning flow to be synchronous. Because you could have like an assignment in here, right? Every time something gets deleted, you have an assignment to review, but you can't block this flow for that. So that would be a place where this asynchronous flow can work. And what it's doing is no matter what, unlike your flow now, which is probably purely synchronous, it just happens to be in a subflow. This can be a completely non-synchronous. It's not asynchronous, or non-synchronous flow. But because it's called in this async manner, it will it meets the conditions for this flow behavior.
So, I mean, if we take that idea, we tried changing the flow behavior type to synchronous.
Mm-hmm.
That would then mean that flow will not allow a assignment.
Yeah, correct. No, I think there's a defect here. I think a flow of a normal subflow whose behavior is synchronous, default flow sync, should work in this example.
That was sort of my hope too, and I was sort of taken aback by, well, that doesn't work. And then, so this is the workaround, is that we just do it asynchronous, and that should be fine for what we're doing. It just strikes me as, the synchronous thing should have worked, in my opinion, too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm gonna get someone to submit a DT for that. Yep, no, but in the meantime, or temporarily at least, using the async, an actual async flow will let you do. So right now you can either copy all of the steps into the flow, right? Make a template from them and then just drop them in here. So they're just they're not in a subflow, or use async, an actual async subflow to get what you want in this delete flow. Those are going to be your two current paths until we investigate if a sync subflow should be respected here.
Yeah, I think between those two choices, I would go with the call the flow, but asynchronously, as it were.
Sure.
And I guess the bigger question was, is this was this the intended behavior, that there really is no way to call out to a subflow short of, filing it off as an async? And I think you're sort of
almost
saying,
certainly
no.
not. Yeah, I don't know with certainty, but fairly certain not. Yeah.
All right, that answers the question then.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chris. All right. So we got Alex up.
Yeah, sorry, I just I came in the middle of that. I'm just curious what's the breaking issue?
It has to do, we're in a delete flow, which is an entity event flow inside of a entities configuration folder.
Okay, gotcha.
And it is not respecting if we look here, there is this error message: this flow only allows synchronous steps. This type of step is not allowed. And what it's complaining about, oddly, there's 4 errors. Oh, I see. This step is complaining that this parent flow is complaining about this subflow, even though it doesn't have anything inside of it. It's consuming, it's unintelligently assuming it's async.
Gotcha.
Yep. And so certain flow types have restrictions, like you can't prevent a delete from occurring, but if this flow fails, it will prevent the delete from occurring. So you can't pause, is really the limitation here, but it's too broadly applied.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. What else have we got? Uh-oh. Okay, all right, Eric. You come to learn from the master.
I came to learn from you, sir, because I couldn't figure this out on a call this morning. Drag a wait for external system step over, if you don't mind.
The woes.
A woes. And as I understand it, when you call the step, we actually provide like an outbound service call that gives you like all of the parameters, like the flow tracking ID, step track ID, etc. Where do you configure that? Like, where do you configure the call out URL?
Like if you need to send this to the other system.
Yeah, so like you have
Yeah.
you're generating a service and click like view integration details, and it says we will provide you with these things. But
so you want to
very
yep.
Well, at the very top where it says here's what we'll send you. Where do you configure that provided URL, and can you change that from a get call to like a post call?
So this is what we'll send. You don't. I think this probably they don't. It doesn't send to anything, right? What you do. Let's put this regular flow here. It's what we call woes, wait on external system. This is a very awesome step in our toolbox when you need to have complicated pause behavior that an assignment will meet the need for.
Yeah, and while you're setting up, one of our customers has the need where they want to call a legacy system via REST, have it do its stuff, and then eventually call us back as a REST service. So I was thinking this because it generates the service.
So what I would say, so service outcome is, is legacy complete, right?
Yeah.
What you ultimately need, all you need is the step tracking and flow tracking IDs to work this task, right?
Yep.
And technically the outcome path name. And so what I would do is I would save this. If I look at view integration details, I can see wait on external system 1 form service. And inside of this, right? Is it going to do anything? There we go. I can see legacy complete, right?
Yeah.
And if I look inside this one, I can say, all right, I can call this as what I need as a REST service. Here's post JSON. And this is all I need is this, right? So I'm going to call this URL, the legacy system calls this URL, and it just gives me the flow tracking and step tracking ID. So the way I've done this for customers in the past is leverage on step run as a private flow. And in here, I'm actually making the post call to the third-party system. Because if looking at Data Explorer, I get step and flow tracking ID in this flow. So I'm making the call to the legacy system here, and then expecting it to call back into the endpoint whose details are here, at which point it will drive this step down the appropriate outcome path.
Got it. So it's a little bit of a misnomer then when you look at the integration details, it says we will provide. We don't technically call out to a service then. Yeah,
that's Okay. Unless there's some way that I don't know how to do it. And I don't know, so that's not it. URL and code call, none of that. I mean, you don't set a URL, you don't set anything to call to.
I guess that's where I was confused. I misunderstood
service outcome,
the service.
Exposed data, that's just about passing data into the service. Yeah. So yeah, that's how we've done it for I don't know, through support, this is how we've gotten it to work for some customers. Because the basic thing is ultimately you just need to be able to you can't get step tracking ID till it hits the step. So you need to use a private flow because that only runs after the step's been hit. And then flow and step tracking ID lets you interact with this and push it down a path.
Got it. Cool. All right. Well, then that answers that question.
Anyone else have questions about wait on external systems? Since I don't think we've talked about this on Lunch and Learns yet. If so, happy to dive in. It's a neat step. You can either call, so there's two ways you can mess with this step. Eric is asking about calling it as a service. So I can stand up a service and let that sits here and waits for someone else to interact with it. Or I've got this little simple scheduled job, and this is complete flow. And I can build I can create outcome paths here. So this will be called, scheduled complete or something. Once I do that, I get an outcome path. But if I come back, let's see if it's going to work right or if it's going to screw up on me. I look at my subflow. What I can do is this thing will run, and I might do something like a fetch entity step or something. I might like look for some record to show up, and on no results, it doesn't complete. On results, it completes. However, this might be configured. And this thing runs on the schedule defined here. So it's like a mini schedule job that runs. And either from a service making a call in or from this little miniature schedule job running, it will check to figure out what path to go down at some point in the future. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So I guess one of the things that was catching my eye is that you had this, what you call this embedded step or the on step run thing, which is how everything gets kicked off essentially. That coming to this step, you use this mechanic to send off the rest call that you're gonna, that then what you're entering into with the above is you're starting a polling mechanic, which is what your actual wait system is I'm going to poll for is that what's happening? Is that you're polling then?
The bottom one here is actually polling. This flow runs every 15 minutes. So you could like look for something and it'll poll and then on a configurable endpoint, it will go down that endpoint. Otherwise, it'll hit the not complete endpoint.
So there are two ways for you to wait then. One is to have this polling mechanic that you just actually put together right quick. And the other is that you have these, as part of the on flow step, you're able to tell the remote system, here's how you call me back and trigger me to move on.
100%, yep. And this just waits. If there is no is complete flow configured, you're just going to wait for the service call back in. So you can imagine like a long process, and at the end is a wait for the, HRIS system to confirm the employee onboarding is complete or something, right? And this flow would wait for a call back from the HRIS system or pull the HRIS system for the record for, John Doe's new employment to be validated or whatever.
It also creates a task in decisions. You actually complete it a third way too. You can manually complete it via task as well.
Then one of the things, so on the run flow on step piece, one of the things I couldn't help wondering, is that a common part or is that a WOS specific feature?
No, yeah, this is on, I know it's on every assignment, assigned form step. It might be on every form step more generally, but I know it's on every assignment for sure.
Okay.
And this is like a lot of the thing, the primary, this gets used in a lot of different places, but let's assume you have an assignment and you need the default assignment notification emails aren't good enough for your requirements there. You can build a completely unique or completely bespoke like a assignment notification email. Or this is, we have a document about like assigning tasks to guests. Task guest, using guest accounts for anonymous tasking, and this leverages that on start flow. Don't worry, Eric. Sabrina's, I think, technically the host. She's been doing all that stuff for us. This thing uses a start flow to actually send an email with a flow to allow like users that don't have, like if I need to create like assignments in my flows, but I don't have accounts for those users, or they're not in any groups, I can leverage the guest account, or I can leverage a named session and tasks together to let third parties interact with the flow, which is a neat thing that you can do. And that leverages this on step run behavior on an assigned form to do that. So there's some neat possibilities. The wait on external system step is a really neat step. And as you can see, there's a lot of overlap here between it and an assignment, because it is actually it takes and extends the default assigned form step to be able to do what it does. Go ahead.
Yeah, it just strikes me as something that may bubble up down the road.
Yeah, this opens up a lot of neat possibilities when you need to interact with actually wait on events for other systems that you can connect to. But what a note of caution, you should not leverage this as your replacement for scheduled jobs. You don't want a million of these running. You'd rather have one scheduled job run that checks a million individual records. Like it's harder to see where all these are at. So they're helpful, but you shouldn't think about them as, well, I'll just start replacing scheduled jobs with these. They you have less control over these than you do a normal scheduled job.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I can see your point. If you have a high volume there, that could, a high volume of weight on external system things that are basically polling, that would be inviting trouble, in my opinion.
Yeah, you don't want a ton of these things running. It could back up your thread jobs since it leverages the assignment escalation handler behavior to be able to turn on and check itself. So I wouldn't say it's meant for large data sets.
Well, I would actually go the other way around. I would say it makes sense for if I throw a large batch of something at a foreign system and I'm just waiting on this one big batch that I get maybe once a day. This might make sense then to wait this way.
Yeah, sure.
But as to do it like at a transaction level, that would be, where it's just a tiny little piece and I have thousands of them per day. That's definitely looking for trouble.
Right. Yeah, because as long as you have, I mean, I guess to my point, as long as you have the step and flow tracking IDs, you could build a scheduled job that finds all of these and then just completes them in the same way that each of these is going to and start a workflow to be able to complete itself. So the scheduled job version there has less overhead by definition. This has to wake up a workflow engine for each call versus one doing all.
Well, so the on-step run piece is the more important part in terms of how would you, link, get the link set up so that the reply can find its waiting record and put that together again. Whether it's by calling you back or whether you have a scheduled job that's fishing every so often.
Correct. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna pass the horn over to Mr. Wilmerink here.
Yeah, thank you, Will.
And I'll stop my share.
I can start mine. Yeah, Will has to jump off, but I will be here for the next 30 minutes or so. If anyone has more questions or wants to keep going, just in case I haven't met you guys, I'm Eric. I help head up the training team over here at Decisions, and have been training for about 5 years. Been with the company. I think this is year 8 or 9. I actually should probably go look. So I've kind of seen it all. I've been around the block a little bit, to say the least. Done sales. I've done big projects, small projects. I've helped Will on support for a long time, so kind of get to see some things. So yeah, I will be here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And if anyone has questions or wants to see things, just yeah, let me know. And yes, my server is down intentionally.
Hey, Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Can't complain. So
Good.
I got a couple of actually very simple questions. One is in a form control like textbox, the watermark property.
Mhm.
Is the text that I put in there supposed to translate if I'm using multiple languages?
Oh, that is a great question. Wow, you're going to stump me with the first one. I don't know if watermark text actually gets replaced, because the replacement for that text actually occurs like this is. Oh, okay. Well, there's a check marks here. Yes.
Not in version 6, so I guess that's the issue. I'm too many versions down.
You're too many versions down. Yeah, I have version 6 open here. This is a relatively new version of 6. So let me double check that property. But yeah, that actually answered my question for me. So I'm guessing if you don't see this in 6, we don't have that property enabled. Yeah. So I would assume this was a no anyway. Just because of the way that the way that the text replacement works for translation services is I wouldn't assume it applies to text boxes, but the fact that there is that checkbox in 7, yeah, means that that's not in version 6 currently. So that would be the answers. In version 7, yes. In version 6, it does not appear so.
Okay. And other easier question is what is an easy way to find out whether or not a date is null?
Ooh, that is a great question. So we do have a generic step that checks if anything object is null. Let me find it. I believe it's called object is null.
Yeah, I thought I tried that one, and it seemed to, when I associated it with a date object, it seemed to just
Seem to not like it.
not yet. I could be. Anyway, we'll see what.
Yeah, let's take a look. But I assume that this step would work. So if I hand in a date time and I say can be null. Okay. Actually, I should probably here. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm actually not going to hand it in. I'm going to create a date here. So we're going to create some data as the first step in the flow. We will create a date. This will be a date time. And for now, yeah, we'll specify a date, and then I will say it's null when I actually go to create it the second time. So what I assume that this would do. And yeah, if you tried this step, maybe there's something else here. So false, it is not null. True, it is null. So I'd expect the first time I run this to go down the false path. Correct, because I am actually outputting a date here. Yep, okay, and then that hands it out. So now, if I say that the mapping for this is null, and that date is indeed null coming out of there, I'd expect that to go down the true path, and it does. Okay. The one thing to note here though, so yeah, so I actually could see that the data is null. Like when I handed it in as input data, which is the path I started to go down. Whenever you're dealing with something like dates or numbers, where we're trying to protect the end user and make sure that we don't set things to null that shouldn't be, you have to tell it as a designer, I want this thing to be able to be null altogether.
Okay.
Because if I uncheck this, even if I try to hand it a null value, so if I do it this way and delete this and remap this step to be, or did I call it date? Is smart enough? I was smart. Cool. Even if I do this and I try to hand it a date or a null date, say ignore inputs, it's still going to set it to a date. Oh, it did know it. All right, well, we updated that in 7 as well. But normally it would send it in not as null, it would send it in as empty, which for dates is what, 1114, whatever,
Right.
1400, whatever. So the two things there is, yeah, I think the object is null step would work, but you have to make sure your data is actually null. And
Okay.
typically you need to
Gotcha.
tell it that it can be null. Maybe if
Okay.
I uncheck this. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now let's try it. Now I think this will go down the tree. Oh, no, it still did it. All right, never mind. I'm wrong. But still, yeah,
Okay,
this
so
is the
object
step
is
you'll want
not
to check
true.
for nulls. Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
good question. Was that it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do kind of have another kind of question, you know, like that is kind of piqued my interest as a result of the earlier question and that flow issue. I mean, at one point, I eventually abandoned, what I was trying to accomplish and moved on to a different strategy. But initially, what I was doing is I, basically have whatever kind of flow, like a new employee or whatever, and you're required to attach documents, whether it's their CV or, that sort of stuff. And so initially, I thought I would like to save those things on my network file system.
Okay.
And so I got all that working, set up an agent, and everything was perfect. It would save everything just like I wanted it to. But at a certain point, I wanted to edit the flow that I was working on. So basically, at that point, I had an edit flow, which would actually go out and get the information to bring onto the form before showing the form, kind of thing, right? And so I was never able to get that to work because it would tell me that the data that I was receiving back from my agent flow was, I think what it was saying is that it was asynchronous, and it could not bring it into my synchronous flow. So I mean, I eventually abandoned that and just started saving it in process, on the decisions server kind of thing.
Got it.
But that earlier question about about flows not working in some instances kind of made me kind of re-ask the question: is that possibly something that is does that make sense that behavior is what's going on?
It kind of makes sense. It depends. I'd have to look at how you had it configured, which I know you said you went another path, so that may not be possible. But it kind of makes sense specifically with the agent. The agent really doesn't like asynchronous processes based on kind of the nature of how it runs. And as you're aware, and for anyone else on the call is aware, the way the agent works is we install a little Windows service on another client computer somewhere that's not on the same network as Decisions, and that allows Decisions to communicate with that network to do things like Alex proposed, file share type stuff. You can connect as web services, you can do Active Directory integrations or database integrations as if Decisions were installed on that network. The problem with doing anything asynchronously is Decisions isn't ever running on that server. So there's no way for us to manage executable threads. There's actually no really thread jobs or things that run other than the agent thread. So whenever we start to look at doing things asynchronously with agent handler flows, we don't like it because just the nature of the way the agent runs. So all that being said, potentially that could have been what happened. If there was something in the agent process that was thinking it was kicking off asynchronously or trying to kick off asynchronously or pausing the flow, like assignments will pause the flow. The agent will typically give you warnings and yell at you about that. So that might have been what is happening. And maybe that's what was there. And like I said, I have to see kind of how the flows were configured and set up to really understand it more.
Right.
But that sounds about right. As to what the errors you were seeing. Yeah, I think that's about right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Which is unfortunate because agents would be able to do a lot more if they could leverage multiple threads, but out of their nature, they cannot. Good question, though. Very technical question. I like it. All right, we got about 14, 15 minutes left. Anyone else have any questions or things they want me to show off? All right. Well, neat. Well, if there's nothing else, then I won't hold you guys up anymore. As always, please feel free to join these lunch and learns again. I'll try to pop in. These are fun. I like answering questions like this. And Will's obviously always here. So yeah, we'll go ahead and end the webinar for now. Thank you all for joining. If you have more questions, just shoot an email to support@decisions.com or me, Eric@decisions.com, and I'll get you connected to the right person. And I'm happy to help you guys out. So thank you all. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Eric.